Hi, this is Katrina, and I'm doing the Module 10 Psych assignment on language acquisition. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about language acquisition in general. So for kids who are specifically kids, because language acquisition is gained in the early stages of life where the brain's still going through the developmental period. In this developmental period, which is in the first few early stages of life, kids will acquire a language that they'll pick up mostly from their peers and like people around them. For people for Jeannie though, or people who are deaf, obviously they won't be able to hear the language. If you ever have listened to Helen Keller speak, even though she's learnt to speak through her life, through Braille and speech therapy, she'll never sound like someone who's heard a language before because she obviously has never heard a language before, so she doesn't have anything from her reference to replicate. This is actually akin to anyone learning any other type of language. Say you travel to a country that you didn't know the language of, I'm going to say Japan or Russia, you'd probably have a pretty hard time understanding what everyone was saying and probably also replicating and picking up what their words were right away. Especially if you're an adult or over the age of past puberty, then you're going to have an even harder time because you're past the period of language acquisition. I can relate to this in my family because I was taught Swedish at a young age. I was taught Swedish as well as English growing up. So I've always had both languages, so I'm fluent in both. Whereas my siblings didn't pick up the language in the same way. They're all younger than me, so they have a lot harder time speaking the language than I do. So that's just an interesting kind of experiment. Some of these theories were tested by different scientific experiments where there were children. Obviously these were done before everyone became a little more ethical, and they figured out that doing these experiments on humans was probably not ethically correct. But these were done a long time ago, and they had children that were young, and as they grew up, they deprived them of certain elements that normally people would gain through social language acquisition. And it turned out that it's a completely nurture-based problem if someone doesn't pick up a language or learn a language. It's through immersion completely. So basically, if you don't learn it during the early stages of life, you're kind of screwed a little bit. So that's all.